Do I really want to revisit my 00s-Era MTV VJ wardrobe?
Oh, this you crazy mother.
In my early 20s, I experienced something of an overnight makeover. I went from being a recreational therapist at a nursing home in Greenwich Village, where my job was to perk up the residents, organizing art classes for our Alzheimer's patients and hosting the Frank Sinatra Appreciation Society, to landing a coveted job as an MTV VJ. I'd sent the network an unsolicited audition tape of myself interviewing people in Times Square. I had only a few acting classes under my belt, but figured I had experience entertaining an audience with a short attention span. At the Village nursing home, my uniform was black pants and a crisp button-down shirt. But television, as you may have heard, is a visual medium. Goodbye, frowsy substitute teacher separates, hello, unlimited sartorial choices, courtesy of MTV's stylists and wardrobe department. And so I called a bingo game at the nursing home on a Monday and taped my first VJ shift the next day. In a nod to efficiency, for that initial appearance I selected a black silk taffeta trench coat from wardrobe. Afterward, I stuck to that silhouette like iron filings to a magnet. Trench coats became my home, I lived in them. The music videos I introduced by Aerosmith and the Red Hot Chili Peppers often featured barely dressed video vixens. But I feel more confident when I'm a bit covered up. Besides, my upper arms have the muscle tone of a raw clam. I eschewed the prevailing mid-90s grunge for something approaching glamour. I got my hands on a silver Cynthia Rowley shift straight off the designer's own back. Plus a black lace embroidered mini dress from Betsy Johnson, and the same bright blue silk Gucci blouse Madonna wore to the 1995 VMAs. Hers, of course, was unbuttoned significantly lower than mine. I liked the contrast of announcing sexy, silly, colorful pop videos while dressed in a grown-up blouse. I wore serious clothes for my cheeky job. It was a sleek solution that made me feel powerful. My fellow VJs joked that working at MTV was like getting to do high school all over again, whereas when I graduated from the teeny bopper audience to become the entertainment host for another pulsating culture factory, HBO, it was like getting a master's in early aughts pop. It was my job to film pre-show interviews with musicians for the concerts the network aired, which is how I ended up following Madonna on her Drowned World Tour and interviewing Britney Spears, whose wardrobe stylists, Kurt and Bart, happened to be my college friends. The sky blue bedazzled top Britney wore for our tete-a-tete was so revealing. She could have been dressing for open heart surgery. I couldn't tell if she was on the outside of the shirt, trying to get in, or on the inside, struggling to get out. I was never that daring, but as I eased into my new life as an elevated roadie, I started taking small fashion risks, like an off-the-shoulder Gucci top from the Tom Ford era. And as my self-assurance grew, I took to wearing my trenches over skirts so short, it looked like I had nothing on underneath. Advertisement, continue reading below. Advertisement, continue reading below. As someone who went through it the first time around, It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that designers who were still in daycare when I was discovering high-end fashion are now mining those vintage millennial memories. Just look at the haute denim coveralls at Dior, or Tommy Hilfiger's recasting of the logo-driven hits worn by Destiny's Child and Aaliyah back in my day. The potent emotional pull of the familiar, mingled with the novelty of the new, strikes a roundhouse punch of nostalgia. There's even a trendy revamp of the juicy couture velour tracksuit under new creative director Jamie Mizrahi, which Katy Perry has already taken for a spin, and early 2000s inspired collections from upstart brands like New York-based Area, which is bringing back ruche tube tops, and Moscow-based Walk of Shame, currently revisiting wide-legged cargo pants. Not to mention the bedazzled and adorned jeans from London-based designer Faustine Steinmetz, who is restyling denim in theory and in practice. She works with a mill in Spain that recycles the fabric into new textures and weaves. Even the going-out top, once beloved by everyone from the Friends on Friends to my own gang of gal pals, made a return on the Paris Fashion Week runways of Saint Laurent and Paco Rabanne. Kendall Jenner wore a crystal-bedecked La Bourgeoisie version as a dress to her 21st birthday party, calling out Paris Hilton vibes in her Instagram caption in tribute to the original celebrant's a Kardashian family friend, after all celebration in 2002. Advertisement. Continue reading below. For Walk of Shame's designer, Andriy Artemov, a huge swath of inspiration comes from the era when he was freshly graduated from college. I mix the references of my youth in Russia with American pop culture, he tells me. And he uses denim in every collection he designs, a throwback to the stiff dark jeans of that epoch. Area designers Beckett Fogg and Piotr Panszyk tell me they're inspired, rather, by the year 2003. We love the overdone glossiness of the time, explains Panszyk, who grew up in the Netherlands. He fondly remembers one of his own standout fashion statements from back then: "I went to a dance, we don't have proms in Europe. I wore silver jeans and a silver metallic shirt." Fogg adds that they're drawn to the era's optimistic and materialistic spirit. Alison Landsberg, a scholar in the field of memory studies at George Mason University, has noted that we tend to feel nostalgic for a time period around 15 to 20 years after it ends. So it makes sense that in 2017, having already cycled through 90s grunge and baby doll dresses fashion, is looking back to the trends of the early aughts, when MTV still played music videos and the insanely popular Total Request Live tied together pop music, fashion, and youth culture. Trend cycles don't just apply to fashion, it seems. This year, MTV rebooted Trail itself. For the older sisters of the screaming Trail crowd, there was Sex and the City, a show whose celebration of style, and going out tops, was so integral to its success that the clothing was enshrined as part of the narrative. Sak's brilliant costume designer, Patricia Field, still sells custom nameplate necklaces, not to mention that unforgettable tutu from the show's opening credits sequence. These indelible pop culture images have at least one thing in common: they embrace the effortful approach to self-display that went along with the era's body-bearing, bottle service ordering, conspicuous status consciousness. Even the grooming that accompanied these clothes was strenuous, from the complex waxing regimens that became de rigueur to painstakingly flat hire-owned hair. Advertisement. Continue reading below. Advertisement. Continue reading below. If the early aughts had a fashion emblem, it would be denim, namely, low-rise, hip-skimming jeans that were the rage with both the performers on stage and those of us dancing in the aisles. The defining moment came when young lovers/pop royals Britney and Justin arrived at the American Music Awards in 2001 sporting head-to-toe denim. Young Americans clad in the gold standard of the Canadian tuxedo, they made a blissfully cheesy pair. Even this moment hasn't escaped the recycling mill. For Resort, the emerging Belgian brand fills a papa, designed by 31 and 33-year-old sisters Sarah and Carol Piron, created a t-shirt bearing the power couple in their forever and blue jeans glory, with the slogan "Never Forget." Advertisement. Continue reading below. Looking back at his own worst-dressed moment, Justin Timberlake once warned, "If you wear denim on denim, it will get documented." How I wish I'd known that just a few months after his sartorial misstep, when I, too, got a poke in the eye from the fickle finger of fashion. I was wearing a tribute to the pop duo's tandem look, my favorite denim trench jeans, and a navy trilby that looked as if it had made a forced landing on my head. I'd intended it as a cheeky homage. I was escorting my niece to the premiere of the NSYNC film On the Line, but the joke was on me. I landed on people's worst dressed list, highlighted in the head-to-toe horrors category. Much as I adore Timberlake, I could not watch On the Line again if you screened it on my own corneas. I'd layer another dictum onto JT's words of wisdom: when wearing a trend you're old enough to remember the first time around, proceed with caution. You draw the line at dressing too young for my middle age, and I probably won't be returning to the hip-hugging denim well. But one of my favorite recent purchases is a bag from Marc Jacobs, a boxy pink distressed denim tote emblazoned with a huge sequined patch of the MTV logo. Carrying it, I don't feel like an old bag. It feels like I'm embracing an old friend.